Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are opening up a really foundational text. It fundamentally reshaped how we think about the mind. D.W. Winnicott's seminal 1945 paper, Primitive Emotional Development.
A classic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our mission here isn't just, to tick off the concepts. We want to understand why Winnicott is arguably the single greatest English-speaking psychoanalytic writer.
Yeah.
So we're focusing not just on his revolutionary ideas, but, well, on the unique, almost literary style he used. It's kind of a deep dive into the art of clinical writing itself. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and we have to start right off by acknowledging the challenge here. Winnicott. His writing is extraordinarily resistant to easy summary.
Right.
If you try and boil his insights down to bullet points, you often end up with these, well, what critics have called trivial aphorisms.
Huh. Trivial. That seems harsh.
It does, but it highlights a key point. For Winnicott, the style is the content. They're inseparable. He wasn't just like reporting findings.
Yeah.
He was using language to create a specific kind of imaginative experience for the reader. If you don't engage with it poetically, you kind of miss the core therapeutic revelation. He invites you to feel the paradox, not just figure it out.
That totally changes how you read it.
Yeah.
The first thing you notice is the form, right? His contemporaries are writing these massive books.
Exactly, long treatises.
And Winnicott's papers are typically brief, maybe 6-10 pages. And his voice is so casual, conversational. It's disarming, but underneath there's this extraordinary intelligence and profound humility, too.
Yes.
His prose, people often say, is like Poe's poems, achieving what poetry does best, simultaneous compression of language and expansion of meaning. It's dense, but it opens things right up.
And absolutely central to that voice is, well, this element of serious playfulness.
Serious playfulness, I like that.
Winnicott had to be playful in his language to even approach the paradoxes of being human. He used subtle wordplay. Think about his accounts of squiggle games with kids.
Oh, the squiggles.
Using the therapy space for shared creation, Serious fun. That's what makes his writing irreducible, like Borges, maybe, or Robert Frost. You can't just separate the message from how it's delivered.
And that principle that the self has to be built before the theory. We see it in that famous quote he gives about his method, right? He says he won't do a historical survey first.
Right. He kind of sidesteps that.
Instead, he explains his process like this. What happens is that I gather this and that, here and there, settle down to clinical experience, form my own theories, and then last of all, interest myself in looking to see where I stole what.
It's brilliant, so self-aware, and then he adds that little kicker. Perhaps this is as good a method as any.
Oh, yeah.
But if you connect that idea, his method, back to the paper's core theme, primitive emotional development, you realize he's actually modeling the infant's psychological journey.
How so?
Well, that earliest stage of life, primitive emotional development, it results in creating a method, right? A unique way of being alive, of responding, that fits the individual. It becomes their unique watermarking. So just like Winnicott says, he must rely on his immediate lived clinical experience first. Well, the individual's own lived experience has to be the foundation for their coherence. You can't just start by slotting yourself into some pre-made theory.
Wow. So the stealing quote isn't just a funny academic disclaimer. It's actually a blueprint for, genuine psychic health. Okay, let's pivot to the clinical stuff because some of these ideas are really revolutionary, starting with depression. Winnicott's take on depression is radically different from Freud or Klein. They focus on internal conflict, sadism, loss.
The standard ideas, yeah.
But Winnicott suggests depression often shows up when the patient, in fantasy, takes on the mother's depression. Or maybe another loved person's.
Yes, exactly. And the unconscious goal is crucial here. It's an attempt sort of to relieve the mother of her pain.
So it's almost like an act of service, but a pathological one.
Precisely. It transforms the patient's suffering. It's not about their own internal failure or hate necessarily, but about love and this desperate desire to help, to serve.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
From internal conflict to, relational care, almost. But think about the implications for the analyst in the room.
Immense.
If the patient is projecting the internalized mother object's depression onto the analyst has to be able to tell it apart from their own stuff, right?
Absolutely. He says the depressed patient requires of his analyst the understanding that the analyst's work is to some extent his effort to cope with his own the analyst's depression.
Wow.
So if the analyst is struggling themselves and can't manage their own depressive feelings, they basically contaminate the space. They can't hold the mother's depression for the patient. It demands this radical self-awareness.
And then he raises the stakes immediately. He adds that the analyst also has to cope with their own guilt and grief resultant from the destructive elements in the analyst's love. Wait, hang on. Isn't that asking for something almost impossible? Superhuman.
Yeah.
To manage your own depression and recognize the patient's projected stuff and deal with the idea that your own love can be destructive before every single session.
Well, yes, it is demanding. And that's why this paper is so unsettling, I think.
Yeah.
He's raising the bar for what it means to be truly alive in the room with the patient. He's implying that love itself involves a demand, a kind of tax on the other person, which can feel overwhelming.
A tax.
Yeah. So the analyst has to grapple with the potential destructive impact of their own love, their own needs, so they can actually love the patient without being afraid of destroying them. And that helps the patient face their own fears about how their love affects others. It's this irresolvable paradox he's asking us to just live with.
Okay. This leads us straight into something that really turns the whole psychoanalytic framework on its head. Winnicott sees the frame itself, the setting, the rules, the boundaries, as a necessary container for the analysts.
Yeah.
Hate.
Yes. Controlled, contained hate. He puts it very starkly.
He does.
The end of the hour, the end of the analysis, the rules and regulations, these all come in as expressions of the analyst's hate.
It sounds awful, but he doesn't mean it as pathology, does he?
Not at all. It's an essential truth. The limits, the rules, they're expressions of the analyst's vital need to protect themselves, their boundaries. It's self-care, but in service of the patient.
It's like acknowledging that unspoken feeling, maybe relief, when the analyst ends the hour on time. Kind of throwing the patient out, as he puts it.
Right. And if you fear expressing that necessary hate, that limit setting, that's when you see what he calls treatment destructive breaches.
Like what?
Oh, extending the session just because, or lowering the fee when it's not really indicated, or automatically calling a patient who missed an appointment without thinking it through.
Okay, I see.
These aren't just acts of kindness. He'd argue they're often attempts to deny the analyst's own necessary destructive urge, the need to preserve the self, but they end up undermining the very structure, the container. The patient needs to feel safe. The analyst has to be able to use their own hate constructively to maintain that frame.
Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about primitive emotional development through this idea of unintegration. This is where Winnicott uses those very common experiences from the clinic. He gives that example, the patient who just lists every single detail of their weekend, minute by minute. And the analyst is sitting there feeling like, okay, nothing analytic is happening here. We have all felt that, right? Being swamped by detail.
Totally. That feeling of drowning and stuff.
Yeah.
And Winnicott, instead of just calling it resistance or something dismissive,
Yeah, the easy interpretation.
he offers this quiet, subtle shift in technique, he says. Sometimes we must interpret this as the patient's need to be known in all his bits and pieces by one person, the analyst.
Ah, so it's not resistance, it's a need.
Exactly. A need related to unintegration, that state where the self hasn't quite glued together yet into a solid single thing. The analyst's job isn't necessarily to interpret actively, but more subtly, to sort of gather his bits together for the patient.
A holding function.
Yes. A holding gathering function. It acknowledges that these primitive, fragmented states aren't just for severely disturbed patients. They happen for anyone when they feel safe enough to just fall apart a bit, be disorganized.
He then gives that absolutely remarkable sentence describing the normal infant state. It just captures that feeling of, well, non-linear existence.
Oh, that line is incredible. Read it.
Okay. There are long stretches of time in a normal infant's life in which a baby does not mind whether he is in many bits or one whole being, or whether he lives in his mother's face or in his own body, provided that from time to time he comes together and feels something.
Just listen to how it's written. The syntax itself does the thing it's describing.
What do you mean?
All those pauses, the commas, the clauses sort of scattered, bits and pieces, before it finally lands on the key phrase. He comes together and feels something. The structure literally mirrors moving from fragmentation to integration. It brings the idea alive.
That's amazing. I never noticed the structure like that.
And there's that lovely little word trick with mind. The baby does not mind being in bits. Why? Because the mother's right there minding him.
Ah, minding as in caring for.
Exactly. Caring for him, holding his experience. So there's no pressure on the baby to develop this premature defensive-mindedness that's cut off from the body. The writing itself is reassuring. It's okay not to be integrated as long as someone is keeping the bits safe.
Safe, gentle anarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that brings us to the moment of the earliest object relation, the birth of external reality. He describes the setup.
Mm-hmm.
The baby has instinctual urges and predatory ideas.
Mm-hmm. Fierce little thing.
And the mother has a breast. And the idea that she would like to be attacked by a hungry baby.
There it is again, that strange mix.
Yeah, that juxtaposited predatory idea sounds so serious, deadly even. But the mother wanting to be attacked sounds almost whimsical, playful. It highlights how their internal worlds are kind of parallel but separate before they actually connect.
And this leads directly to the crucial phrase that really changed developmental psychology. He argues these two things, the baby's urge, the mother's readiness, do not come into relation with each other till the mother and child live and experience together.
Live and experience together.
Yes, focus on that word, live. He uses it transitively here. They don't just have an experience or share one, they live it, they infuse it with their being.
Okay.
This is Winnicott shifting the core of psychology away from just internal drives, like Freud focused on, towards the actual experience of being alive and the absolute need for that feeling of continuity, so disruption to that continuity of being. That becomes the ultimate psychological trauma.
And this leads straight into illusion, right? What he later called transitional phenomena.
Exactly. It's the essential overlap. The mother provides the object, say, the nipple, just at the moment the infant is sort of conjuring it up internally. So the infant experiences it simultaneously as his own creation, like a hallucination.
And as something real, something discovered out there in the world.
Precisely. The infant comes to the breast ready to hallucinate something it can attack, and lo and behold, the actual breast appears, perfectly matching and validating the fantasy. It lets the infant start building that amazing capacity to mentally conjure up what is actually available externally.
That's brilliant.
And this is where we see the real advantage of external reality. We usually think of reality as frustrating, right? The reality principle.
Well, limiting.
But Winnicott focuses on the relief it provides. Pure fantasy, he warns, works by magic. It has no breaks. It can cause alarming effects. It's actually terrifying if it's untethered.
Right. Pure magic can be scary.
But external reality is valuable because it does have breaks on it. It can be studied and known. That powerful subjective magic of fantasy is only really tolerable at full blast, he says, when objective reality is also deeply appreciated and felt as reliable.
So reality grounds the fantasy. Makes it safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If reality doesn't have breaks, fantasy tips over into psychosis.
And to make this concrete, he gives those wonderful poetic examples of illusion in childhood that capture that translucent, mystifying quality of imaginative experience he mentions.
Bubbles and clouds and rainbows and all mysterious phenomena, and also to his interest in fluff.
Fluff. I love that.
Somewhere here, too, is the interest in breath, which never decides whether it comes primarily from within or without.
The breath. That perfectly captures it, doesn't it? That moment of overlap, internal creation, external discovery, all happen at once in that mysterious in-between space.
So, wrapping this up, Winnicott, quietly but profoundly, just defied that conventional idea that writing is just a tool, a vehicle for ideas, like a phone carrying a voice.
Right.
He demonstrates this indissoluble interpenetration of life and art. The way he observes things is deepened by the language he uses, and the language comes alive because of the observation. They energize each other.
So what does this all mean for you listening?
Well, I think the takeaway is that the vitality of ideas really depends on the vitality of the language used to express them.
To be alive in more than just a sort of operational clockwork sense means to be constantly in the process of making things your own, whether that's insights or art or even just a coherent story about yourself.
And maybe a final provocative thought to leave you with. We have to remember Winnicott's caveat about creativity. He noted it is lethal, and he meant literally lethal for an infant when disconnected from objectivity. That is, from acceptance of external reality.
A crucial warning.
So as you explore new knowledge, develop your own ideas, your own theories, how do you make sure that your subjective fantasy, that brilliant, unique insight you've created, stays safely anchored? How do you maintain that steady, unwavering grasp of external objective reality alongside it? Something to think about.